Um, yeah, I'm Kosala, and then founder and CEO of MyEtherWallet. Talking a little bit about like how it all started. By the way, I'm super happy to be here. First of all, today, talking a little bit about like how MyEtherWallet started and where we are right now today. We have to go all the way back to the Yellow Paper of Ethereum, and so that's when I started reading about it. Like when I first read the Yellow Paper, I was super intrigued by it because it follows the same principle as the blockchain, but it also at the same time it introduced this whole virtual machine. So pretty much you can run your applications, you can run your programs inside blockchain, and then have minus consensus to one output. So I was super intrigued by it, and then ever since then I started reading more and more about it, and then like followed through the development cycles. And when Ethereum introduced the test network, so they initially introduced the test network before the mainnet, they asked everyone to brute force it and try to hack it, attack it, like crack it, do anything you can to pretty much make it, fail-proof. So people did break it. People found a lot of bugs and problems in the Ethereum network during that test phase. And that's when I first wrote my first smart contract, which was in essence an Ethereum faucet, which gives out test ETH to people. So whoever wants to test the network can simply make a request to the faucet, the smart contract, and then it'll send back the Ethereum Ether, test Ether for testing purpose. So they can continue to test. They don't have to manually fund their account to do the testing. They can just, like when they run out of the balance, they can just make a simple request to the Ethereum faucet, and then the faucet will send a test ETH, and then they can continue the test. So that was my first smart contract. And then a couple of months passed by, and then Ethereum introduced the mainnet, where Ether actually had value. So as soon as something has value, a lot of newcomers starts coming in. Like these people are not like completely new to blockchain, but they were new to Ethereum. They were still newcomers. They wanted to do simple transactions like simple tasks like generating a wallet or sending a transaction, interacting with a contract. I mean, they see all these different words, right? The contracts, smart contracts, wallets, but they don't know exactly how to do it. And only place they can ask questions were on Reddit, and I saw so many Reddit posts asking, hey, how do I generate a wallet? Because back in the day, Ethereum was just CLI, so meaning like only command line interface. So everything you had to do was everything you could do was using CLI. And this is when I first thought of, hey, maybe I can figure out a way, or maybe I'm not a designer, but like maybe I can put together a small UI to make it easy for people to generate wallets and send transactions. That was my only hope at that point in time, and I did. So I made it open source. I made a repo on GitHub and made it public, and went public with it on Reddit. I said, hey, like if you want to generate a wallet, here's a UI. And just click generate and you have a bunch of wallets. But the problem was a lot of people was very skeptical about it. They were like, hey, I mean, he's just trying to steal your private keys. Don't ever use this wallet. Like he's just trying to steal your private keys. But since I was prepared for it since the beginning, because I made it open source and I did not have a domain name, like myetherwallet.com didn't exist back then. It was directly linked into the GitHub repo, so anyone can just go directly to the GitHub link and then use it. So they were able to verify the source code, making sure that what they're using is actually this specific source code, and that source code is not stealing any keys. And because of that, later on, a couple of days after, it started getting interest, and a lot of people started requesting for features. They wanted to have new features. So, but like I said, since I wasn't a designer, it took me a lot of time to move one button from one point to another point, than actually making it work. So that's when I talked with my friend, and I brought her in, and she was a designer, and then from that point onwards, we both started developing MyEtherWallet, added new features. I was full-time student, like working for a company, and this was the hobby project for both of us, me and Taylor. And eventually, like around August last year, that's when we realized, okay, it's not just two-person job anymore. It's not like two-person team anymore. We have to increase our team members. and we started hiring people, and we actually made it a company. So the MyEtherWallet company was born in last year, 2017. And from that point onwards, as you all know, like blockchain boom, like everything started booming. The price went up, Ethereum went up, everything started going up. And since we were there since the beginning, and since we were the most trusted wallet, we started growing with Ethereum as well, because that was the to-go place to all these newcomers who are coming in. Still it is. So, and we grew with Ethereum, and like right now we are getting almost 1 million visits. On average, like 600 visits, 600,000 visits a day. But on like some days we get 1 million visits. So we have a whole backend and a whole team, office in downtown LA. So it became, it went from a hobby project to a full-blown company, and that's where we are standing right now. And then that's the past, which was the first point that I didn't even change the slide. And then so let's get into a little bit of what is MyEtherWallet. MyEtherWallet not only supports Ethereum, it supports any network, any blockchain that's based on Ethereum code base. So any Ethereum clone or any new version or new fork of Ethereum or anything like that. So we have ETH, ETC, Quant, Robson. Quant, Robson are the test network, and you might know ETC is the fork of Ethereum, Ethereum Classic. We support all those because it's using the same exact API, and then we can easily integrate any of those nodes, any of those networks with MyEtherWallet easily. And for example, let's just say you come up with a private chain. Like you have your own set of rules, and as long as you use the same code base, you can link MyEtherWallet with that private chain and use it for your own purpose. And it becomes your wallet now. And so we support multiple networks, but I'm mainly focusing on Ethereum today. One of the features we have is Generate Wallet. I'm not going to get into too much in technical details, but so we support multiple different types of wallets in Ethereum or in any blockchain type of coin or cryptocurrency or any token. It comes down to like your key store file, because that's where your funds are. You control your private key and you control your funds, because if you lose that, you lose your funds. There's no insurance backing it. So there are multiple ways you can save your private key. One of them is paper wallet, where you can see everything is plain text. So your address is in plain text, your private key is in plain text. So if someone see this or someone take a picture of this, that means that person has access to your wallet. So this is like the backup of the backup of the backup plan. If you create a paper wallet, don't take pictures of your paper wallet on your phone, because when the cloud gets hacked, your money goes away as well. And we always recommend, if you actually create a paper wallet, use an offline printer, like the old school, go old school. Connect it using a wire, and then print it, and then burn the printer. So yeah, and then once you do that, make sure you keep it safe. Don't it's for your purpose, right? No one else needs to know where it is, unless you want to put it in a will and all those things. But just keep it safe. Don't share it with anyone. Don't give it to anyone. That's if you do a paper wallet. But there are a lot of other secure ways of having a wallet. And the second, the standard way of having a wallet is key store file. This is supported by all like major Ethereum clients, Get, Parity, and all the Java versions and Python versions and everything. So this is the standard file type. The difference from this versus paper wallet is that this is a file that you can keep safe, but it has another layer of security on top of it, meaning this is encrypted using a password you chose. So you have the chance to type in a password and convert that 64 characters, like the raw private key, to this format. I know it looks a bunch of gibberish, but it's because it's encrypted using your password that you chose. So even in case if someone somehow managed to, like, let's say this file is in your computer, and somehow someone managed to hack your computer and get this file, as long as that person cannot predict the password that you put in, that person cannot access your funds. So you still have a chance. Like let's say you figured out, oh, your laptop was hacked, or your computer was hacked, it's stolen, or something. You still have a chance to move your funds from this wallet to a different wallet because you're the only person who knows the password for that wallet. These are all that like N values and all those are super technical, but N value is pretty much determines how long it takes for a computer or a machine to brute force it. For example, let's say only way to decrypt this wallet type is by brute forcing all the known passwords, right? Or like all the known characters. So as long as you don't use a common password like monkey or something, you're good. But that number, the higher the number, the better it is. So because initially we used to have 1024, but as the graphics card, the power of graphics card continued to grow, we had to increase it to 8192. There's an advantage and disadvantage of increasing it because when you increase it, it takes longer to generate a wallet because it encrypts it on top of each other for that many times. So it also hardens it to decrypt it or like brute force it because it takes longer. Even if it takes a second to try one password, now just imagine trying 1,000 or 10,000 passwords again. Trying to brute force it, meaning it will take 10,000 seconds. So the higher the number is better it is, but it also takes longer to generate a wallet. And the other wallet type is called mnemonic phrase. So the top, what you see over there, Orchard, Divorce, Upset Pen, that's actually a wallet. It's not just one wallet, it's n number of wallets. You can create any number of wallets using that phrase because it's not just it's not a private key per se, but it has entropy. Like entropy meaning it has random bytes inside. So just imagine you take a bunch of random bytes and then you convert it to, you derive those the words for it, which is called mnemonic phrase because now you can remember it. If you have such a good memory, you can definitely remember the mnemonic phrase. And as long as you remember the mnemonic phrase and it's not copied anywhere, that means you're the only person who has access to all those wallets. If you have a mnemonic phrase, you can use it on most of the cryptocurrencies out there. You can have the same mnemonic phrase for Bitcoin, you can have the same mnemonic for ETH, you can have the same mnemonic for any other like Quant or Upstream, all those test networks or any Neo and all those things because it can derive multiple private keys or multiple different private keys based on the network you're using it. And the last word of that mnemonic phrase is actually super interesting because that's called the checksum. So let's say you typed in, like let's say you remembered it. It's not supposed to be remembered, but let's say somehow you remembered it, but and then you typed it wrong, you switched two words or something. That it's going to actually give out an error saying this is an invalid mnemonic phrase because of the last word. The snake in this case is the checksum. It verifies all the previous words you entered are in order and are correct. So if the previous words are not correct, the checksum will fail and technically your mnemonic phrase is wrong. And so that's the advantage of, yeah.
How does it go from these mnemonic phrases to the private key?
So it actually derivation, and you can see each byte, like let's say you take 128, right? Those are the bits. You take bytes of them, and then there's a word corresponding to each byte of that. Like for example, the entropy, if entropy is 128, checksum is 4 byte bits, and so the entropy plus that's 132, meaning that's 12 words. So you convert all those different bytes to individual words. So there are 2048, there are different words for different languages, but in English I think there are 2048 different words, which technically corresponds to byte. And then eventually based on the bytes, it'll create the checksum at the end, checksum word. And then you can go the other way. You get the words and then get the bytes. Technically it's random bytes converted to words. So that's that. And so the mnemonic keys are super important because even though initially when Ethereum came out, mnemonic phrases weren't part of it. They didn't think about it. And we had a lot of issues because we had to come up with standards and like what to do, how to use it, because Bitcoin had different standards for mnemonic phrases and Ethereum can't do the same thing. So there was like a lot of different discussions about it, but now that we do have those standards and paths and how to use it, now the mnemonic phrases are used everywhere, including the hardware wallets, which I'm going to talk about, and the MetaMask. So hardware wallets, this is what we recommend to anyone. If you have Ethereum and you can spend $100, buy a hardware wallet. This is the most secure way of using any cryptocurrency. The main difference in hardware wallets is that mnemonic, that entropy, actually lives inside the wallet. Even you can see it. So you can see it because when you set it up, you have to write down the 12 words or like 21, 24 words, but it's supposed to be just one time because in case if you lose the wallet, that's how you recover your funds. But since it's inside the actual device, no one can, it's never get exposed to the outside world. So all the transactions, all the signing, all the verifications happens inside the device itself, so that you always get a second, like two-factor authentication part of it. Whenever you try to send a transaction, it'll ask you, the actual device will ask you, hey, you want to send this transaction? Did you actually verify to send this transaction? And if you say yes, it'll send out the transaction. So, and since the private keys are not getting exposed to the outside world, phishers cannot get you. Even if you use it on a phishing website, you can still see, hey, like this is not where I tried to send the transaction to. This is like they completely changed the address. So you still have the chance to deny that transaction and it will not go through. So highly recommend it. And it not only supported, it doesn't only support ETH, it supports Bitcoin, and like Ledger device support Bitcoin, and a lot of other ones, Ether and a lot of other coins, and then Ledger Trezor as well, and digital Bitcoins and Cipher, they're pretty safe. So if you can afford it, please do. And then the MetaMask. So let's say you cannot afford a hardware wallet, right? That's when you can install MetaMask, because that's the next best thing. It also uses the same mnemonic phrase keystore type, but MetaMask is an extension for your Firefox or Chrome. So if you have MetaMask installed, you can generate a wallet, and then you'll go through the exact same steps. It'll tell you to write down the words, and then you write down the words, and it'll create a wallet for you. So you can go to any website, that even MyEtherWallet, you can go to myetherwallet.com and then select MetaMask and then continue your routine. And whenever something actually is supposed to go out, whenever there's a transaction going out, it'll have a pop-up saying, hey, did you actually try to send this transaction? So you can verify all the details, the true address, data, value, how much you're trying to send, and all that information. If you didn't, you click deny. If you did, accept, and then the transaction will go through. So last two are the recommended types by everyone as of now. So MetaMask or Ledger, because the other ones you still has the ability, like a phishing website. Let's say a person, right? The people are innocent. They just go to a website that looks like MyEtherWallet and then just type in the mnemonic phrase or the keystore file. The moment they do that, like the private key actually gets exposed. And the phishing websites just get it. So I'm sorry, but like it happens every day. So I'm talking about all these like random keys, but how random it is. Like how do we create these random wallets, right? So in our case, for MyEtherWallet, we use a built-in function on your browser called window.crypto, where it can create cryptographically secure random wallets, and then this is powered by your machine. So not two different computers cannot derive the exact same private key at the same time, or like at any point in time, because they're secure enough. And like for example, in Linux, it takes different movements, like your keyboard typing, your mouse movements, and random device, and all those things to generate this entropy, so that it's random enough, it's cryptographically random enough, so that two people not going to derive the exact same wallet. And it all comes down to probability. Because in worst case scenario, there can be that many private keys, 2 to the 256. But to give you an overview of how big that number is, there are less atoms on Earth than that number. So that's how big that number is. And to just give you an idea on how long it'll take for you to brute force, meaning like try all the different combinations to derive a private key, this is a good example. So this is pretty much saying, if you can harness, because our biggest energy source right now is the sun, if you can harness the power of sun using a Dyson sphere, so like the whole sun, you harness it to the most possible point, and use that to build a computer that can count through all, like from 0 to that number, you'll run out of energy by 2 to the 192. So your sun, like the whole energy from the sun is already gone by the time you get to 2 to the 192. So that's how secure it is. Again, this is secure based on our current technology, meaning our computers are powered by transistors. So the transistors are good at multiplying, but not good at dividing. So, but the other way, the quantum computers will come into the scene pretty soon, and all of our algorithms needs to be quantum proof. And this is something that everyone's currently working on, including Ethereum. There will be quantum proof algorithms that will come into the story later on to make sure the quantum computers cannot brute force our keys. But still, this happens. Like keys get brute forced. People lose money. Accounts get hacked. It's not because that theory is wrong. It's because somehow the whole generation, the random number generation system is being manipulated. For example, like hacked RNG, random numbers generated, can be that's the main reason why a lot of people get hacked, because bad plus phishing. Because if they use a manipulate or like the hacked random number generator, it looks like it's random, but it's not technically random. So this happened to Ledger actually pretty recently. Well, not Ledger, but people who bought Ledger devices, Ledger hardware from eBay. This is happening. Like a lot of people sell Ledger hardware wallets on eBay and any other like marketplaces out there. So don't do that. Don't buy it. Just go to the official site. It's the same price. Just get it from there. It happened because somehow they managed to manipulate the random number generator inside the Ledger hardware wallet. So it looked like they generated a new wallet when they generated a wallet, but the next day all the funds are gone. So it happened to multiple people, and when they found the culprit, it was pretty much they all bought it from off the market, pretty much eBay, because it was $10 less or so. Yeah, don't do that. Always go to the official source. And the next one is talking about mnemonic phrases, right? The whole reason for mnemonic phrases is something like readable, something memorable, something you can remember. Because now you convert that super random hex characters to readable words. And a little bit of Ethereum, background about Ethereum. So there are two main founders, Gavin Wood and Vitalik. And Vitalik stayed with Ethereum Foundation while Gavin Wood had to leave, and he started Parity Tech. And so Parity came up with a new system similar to a mnemonic, where it's not there. You don't have that checksum word at the end. But so they still generate n number of random words. So you can still, it's very similar to mnemonic phrases. They still generate 12, 16, or 21 random words. And then you'll have a wallet. But the problem with that is that since it doesn't have the checksum, any word you come up with is actually a valid wallet. So for people who can read this with the simple programming flow here, so any word, like for example, I can simply say shoe, and that derives to a wallet. And it's super easy for someone to go through a bunch of words and get shoe. Oh, this wallet has funds, so I'm just going to steal it. So that's what happened when MyEtherWallet implemented parity phrase. People just started just typing in random words, and they thought that's secure enough, but unfortunately those weren't secure enough. They were able to Some people actually lost money because they didn't use secure enough words, or they didn't use the standard parity phrases generated by parity itself. So because of that, we took it down. The moment we realized this is what's happening, we took down parity phrases. Parity phrases, I honestly, personally don't recommend anyone to use parity phrase unless you actually generate it through parity itself. Because any word that you can come up with, any sentence that you can come up with is actually will derive to a wallet, which is, it's called brain wallets are not secure because our brain can be easily manipulated to say certain words. The first thing I saw was shoe, so I came up with shoe. So people can easily manipulate our brains to come up with different words, and then they'll use those words if they have to generate a wallet. So brain wallets are definitely not secure. Yeah.
I have a question about, so how do websites like Coinbase and others, we are just giving them a simple password, how are they generating the private keys?
So that's a really good question. It comes down to centralized systems versus decentralized systems, because you can always generate wallets, right? At that point in time, you use your username and password to log in, but their random number generator is on their server. So they control all your private keys. So if they want, they can block your account, and there's nothing you can do about it. Because they control your private keys, and therefore they have your funds. Versus in this case, you control your private key, therefore you are the one who's responsible for your funds. So you are the one who have to make sure you are doing everything right. It comes down to that, like, are you willing to let someone else control your funds? Like we used to be, that's how we did for the past, like, century, right? Like for all the past. Because we always let other people control our funds. We let banks control our funds. We let investment firms control our funds. That's how it's been forever, and that's why it's like hard for people to understand. Oh, what happens if I get to control my funds? That means I also have to take the responsibility if I lose it. It's not insured, all those things. But there are advantages and disadvantages for both sides. To answer your question, yes, they do generate private keys, but they do it on the server side.
So how random is the algorithm?
I'm pretty sure they are using the most, like, the cryptographically random generators out there. It's secure enough because they have a HackerOne program. They have all these other programs that to make sure all, like, the number generators are random enough. Last time I actually had a conversation with blockchains.info, Peter. He's the CEO of blockchains.info. That's the leading blockchain explorer for Bitcoin. They have a quantum machine, not a quantum machine, but like they have a very specialized machine they made just for generating random numbers. So they have it in London, but they pretty much go through the same thing. They have a centralized system, but the way they do it, they let you have access to your wallet as well. So there's a different setup in there. But they use a separate machine just made for random numbers generation, which was pretty impressive. Did that answer the question? So when you talk about a transaction, so obviously a transaction is still the same definition. You send value from one point to another point. You just do exchange value transfer. Or you can also send value to yourself. It doesn't make any sense, but you can do that. So a transaction in Ethereum is the exact same thing. It's just we have a couple more added fields. Like the to field is the destination address where you want to send. And the value is pretty much the value, how much you want to send. You can also send zero value transactions. But how do we prevent people from sending bazillion zero value transactions? So that's when the gas price and gas limit comes in. Because what if that doesn't exist, if anyone can send any number of transactions, just imagine, like I can send million zero value transactions because I can. There's nothing preventing it from happening. But since I have to actually pay gas price, even if it is a zero value transaction, someone has to mine it. Someone has to do work to include that in blockchain. So that's why the gas price comes. That's where the gas price comes in, because you are paying the miner to include this transaction, include this in the blockchain, and so you have to define how much you're willing to pay to the miner to include this transaction. That way you incentivize the miner to mine that transaction. So if you put 0 gas price, no one's going to mine it because there's no reason for them to mine it. There's no reason for them to include it. And that's why you put any number, like it has to be in GWay, which is, that's the standard, right? But you actually let them know, hey, I'm willing to pay this much if you mine this transaction. So the higher the number, the better it is, but you also have to make sure the current, like you have to check the current network conditions to make sure it's not crazy or there's no CryptoKitties sales going on. Like the whole network went down for that, and I don't know. We got so many support tickets trying to figure out, hey, my transactions are not going through, or like, and then we checked our transaction pools and it was overflowing. Like there's no space to include transactions because everyone's trying to buy kitties on the blockchain. So that's what happened. Like in that case, if it's overloaded, then obviously you have to put like a really high gas price amount, so that the miners are more like they'll mine your transaction over someone trying to buy a kitty. So that's how it works. And then you define the transaction, and then you do crazy math over there using one of the hardware wallets or like the software wallets or any type of wallet we talked about. And then you sign it. This is a digital signature. It's pretty much similar to you signing a contract. You're saying, yeah, I'm giving this much to that person, and then you sign it. So anyone can verify that's your signature. And then if it's your original signature, then they'll do the transfer. So that's pretty much what it is. This is a digital signature that miners can verify that the funds are actually coming from this specific account. So we have multiple ways of sending transactions. One is online version, which is you go to.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So on your previous slide, I was just wondering how does does Mu do any estimation of gas price on its end?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I did not get into details because gas limit. You see gas limit over there. So let me try to explain it in basic terms. So let's say we have gas limit is pretty much like the gas tank in your car. So you're trying to go from point A to point B. If you know exactly how much gas you need, perfect. You just do, let's say in order to go from point A to point B, you must have 10 gallons. You put 10 gallons, you go from point A to point B. That's good, right? You accomplish the task. Like let's say you don't know, but you can always demand. Instead of putting 10 gallons, you put 20 gallons. You still get from point A to point B. That transaction is good as well. Now, let's just say you underestimate. You put 5 gallons. It stops halfway. You lost your gas. You lost the money that you invested in putting gas in, and all that. So, and you didn't accomplish the task. So that's pretty much what's happening in Ethereum transactions. So in order to do a simple value transfer, you don't need much gas. It's 21,000. But like let's say Ethereum is not just value transfer. It has the Ethereum machine behind it. So you can actually do computation in the Ethereum virtual machine. In order to do that, you have to pay these miners. You cannot just expect them to do the computations for free. So you have to make sure you pay them enough. And the amount you pay them is actually gas price multiplied by the gas limit. So gas limit is based on number of computations you do, or number of keys, or number of values you're storing in the blockchain. So, for example, if there's infinite loop, like if someone's trying to store the same value again and again and again and again infinitely, that's not going to happen because it's bound by the gas limit. Because every single computation reduce an amount from the gas limit, and then eventually it will hit 0. And if the transaction didn't complete at that point in time, then it'll reverse everything back, including if there was a value transfer, it'll reverse that back, except the gas price, just like in gas you put into your car. It'll send the gas price times gas limit to the miner because someone actually tried to compute this transaction even though it wasn't supposed to be, or like it wasn't supposed to go through. Yeah.
you talk about the point of the nonce?
Nonce? Okay, so the nonce is actually number of transactions you sent out so far. So if you, let's say you have a brand new wallet and it has value in it, and then your initial transaction, initial nonce will be 0. So it's pretty much how many transactions you've sent out through that account so far.
Why do you need it?
You need it because to spend double spending. I mean, to stop double spending. Just imagine you're trying to send two transactions, right? To the exact, or two different people. Now, how do miners know which transaction to include? Let's say I'm spending one. I only have 1 ETH and I'm spending 1 ETH, and then I'm broadcasting two different transactions with the exact same information, except there's no nonce. Like how do miners know which one to include? There's no, like they don't have a way of knowing which transaction is the legit one, which transaction is the fake one.
Won't one of them just fail if one goes through your balance sheet and everything?
Yeah, but now don't forget this. Then there's a race condition, right? Which miner includes which transaction. So in order to stop that from happening, you add the nonce. And you can replace a nonce. You can replace by fees. If you put a higher gas price, you can actually, like let's say my nonce was 1, and then I send one transaction to someone, and then I want to replace it. I can do the replacement to someone else, but like then you are replacing because you are paying more. There's a reason. So you're not incentivized to do that because you have to pay more to get that transaction out.
Yeah, so can I just add in here? So, yeah, the main reason is to prevent replay attacks. Because if you're Alice and you're sending Bob, say, 1 Ether and there is no nonce, Bob will always just be able to get that thing that you've signed and just keep submitting it to the miners, and Bob will be able to keep getting the 1 Ether. So that's the main reason.
Stop replay attacks?
Yeah, stop replay.
Okay. Well, that's that's awesome. So
Otherwise, yeah, it's a check, and Bob can just keep cashing the check. No one can.
what if the amount decrease from the state?
Oh yeah, if Alice runs out, then Bob will not be able to get from Alice.
Yeah, so it's pretty much it's for double spending and replay attacks and things. So yeah, that's why the nonce is there, and then the data is there just because you talked about it. The data is there to interact with the contracts because the contracts needs information, what to do and what needs to be done. So you put data in there, and then the contracts can get that information, read that information, and execute specific tasks. I'll get into data build in a bit. So online, offline transactions and broadcasting it. So you can, there are multiple, so we need nodes. Like if you're completely offline, let's say you're completely offline, your computer's offline, and you want to sign a transaction. The problem with that is you need certain values from the network. You need certain values from the actual online computer. For example, you need to get the nonce. Everybody knows the nonce, right? Like if you're if you just want to send a transaction, but you don't know how many transactions you sent so far, unless you keep count of it. And you have to get the gas price based on the current conditions of the network. And you have to get the gas limit, like the estimated gas limit. And so in order to do this, you have to have a online computer that can predict. Oh, you can always overestimate the gas. So let's forget about the gas limit. Let's say you are trying to send a transaction, small value transfer. You know it's 21,000, so you can just put 21,000 in. But you still need the nonce and the gas price. So in order to do that, you have to be connected to the network. But if you're familiar with the Ethereum, there are other ways you can just get that information. You can either go to Etherscan and figure out like how many transactions you sent so far, or you can go to MyEtherWallet and put your address in and figure out how many, and then it'll give you the current gas price and then the nonce for you to fill in. And you can just simply go to, we have a feature on MyEtherWallet that has offline transaction. You can fill in the information, to address, and the nonce, gas limit, and everything. You can completely do this on an isolated computer that's not connected to the internet. just so that like, let's say you're using a keystroke file, just to make sure you're not going to get phished or anything, you can use an isolated offline computer to generate the transaction. And once you have the full signed transaction, you can simply go back to MyEtherWallet or Etherscan. They have their own broadcast system and broadcast that transaction. And then we'll use we have 10, on average we have 10 servers, 10 nodes running in the backend to broadcast these transactions. And then once you do that, once you do the offline transaction, it'll broadcast to all these nodes and it'll get broadcasted to the network. But if you're doing it online, if let's say you are on myetherwallet.com, we'll do it for you. Like our nodes will calculate the gas limit, our nodes will calculate the nonce and then the gas price. And you pretty much, all you have to do is put in the to address, the value and the data if you are trying to send data, and then send the transaction, and everything else will be taken care of. So in Ethereum, there are two different types of accounts. One is a regular account, just like the accounts you generate. You go to myetherwallet.com or any other generation method and generate a wallet or Mnemonics, all those things. And then once you generate, those are the regular accounts. Let's say you create your own smart contract, because Ethereum can, it has its own EVM. And then when you generate a smart contract, it will also have its own unique address. It's exactly similar to a regular account address. So those are the two different types of accounts. You can always send value or data to a regular account. You can have a data field if you're sending funds or transaction to the data. A regular account, but it not necessarily means you're doing something. Like nothing's going to happen if you have data. It's optional. And smart contracts, on the other hand, it requires data. It wants you to. You're trying to do something. You're trying to make the smart contract do something for you. So you have to have data. And so let's just say, for example, you're trying to transfer some tokens. You're trying to transfer tokens from one point to another, and that's the function name to transfer tokens. So transfer, and then you have obviously you have to put a data. I'm talking about the data field now. So address 2. So, let's just say you're trying to send transfer to address 0x123. So you put 0x123 there, and then the value of 1,000 tokens, you put 1,000 there. But when you do that, it actually converts to hex data field where you can, where it knows exactly what to do. That transfer function will get converted to the 4 bytes over here, because the EVM needs to know which function to execute. And then that to address will get converted to that. And then, which is in essence, say the same address, but with zeros appended to it to make it 64 digits. And the value is in hex form. So whatever the value you choose, that'll get converted to hex form. That's how you let the EVM know. You put data, you add data to the data field, and then the EVM will figure out what needs to be done and what tokens needs to be converted. Yeah.
Why does never mind.
Yeah. Okay. So tokens, we do support. Yeah. Sorry.
So the initial part is basically just the function address within the smart contract, essentially?
Function address within the smart contract. So it is like, let's say this is the transfer function. It converts, it takes the SHA-2 hash of transfer and then the input parameters. So this is pretty much, you take that and then hash it, you'll get this hash of transfer, this function, the input parameters. And then you take the first 4 bytes of it. Yep.
So every argument is this of the same fixed length in terms of bytes? Is that why it's 0 padded? Or
yes, except if it is dynamic. Like let's say it's a bytes input, then they have a different way. It'll set bytes or string input. So it'll say exactly what's the length of the string, and then it'll append to the end. But other than that, most of the fixed ones are 32 bytes, so 64 hex characters. So that's why it appends the zeros in front.
Well, I was just going to say, unless in your Solidity code you explicitly make it like a unsigned int 8 to reduce gas price and stuff, right?
If I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's still, when you actually send it, it'll still pad 64. Make sure it's 64 in there, just to like separate it. But when it executes, it uses less gas. The data field will actually have that. Yeah.
So does MyEtherWallet like automatically choose the transfer function when you're trying to move tokens?
Yeah, exactly. So when you when you select a token, let's say you have tokens, and then you select a token and add the to field and type in the value. Click, it'll generate the transaction. It'll do all this for you, and then send out the token.
And then what if the contract didn't have a transfer function? What happens?
If the contract didn't have a transfer function, it will simply fail. The transaction will fail because it's not there. And you'll have, if you transfer value, you'll get the value back, but the gas will.
And then how does Mu ensure that the data field is not getting fished or modified by some attacker, even if you're using a wallet, because the wallet is probably not verifying the data field, right?
The Mu, if you're on the legit Mu, Mu will generate this field for you, but we cannot, once you sign the transaction, no one can modify it after that. Because once you sign the transaction and broadcast it to the network, no one can modify it, because the moment you modify it, the whole signature will change and it's not being signed anymore.
But like the wallet will show you how much money you're sending, who you're sending, but it won't show you the data field that you filled in. Right? So what if someone's coming to modify the data field? Is there any way to verify
If you're using a hardware wallet, the hardware wallet will actually show it to you. And even on Mu, we have a shorter form on data, like the final confirmation box has the data field is there. Yeah, so you still have the verifying the ability to verify, but like if you're using a hardware wallet, the hardware wallet will show you the data field. But again, when it comes to reality, not many people know what the data field is, or like how to verify the data field. So they just accept anything, and it's a problem that we are trying to tackle as well. So you might have heard of all these ERC20 tokens, and ERC20 tokens are again smart contracts, but like all the smart contracts are not tokens. So, like for example, Enos, pretty much a smart contract, when you send a transaction, that specific transaction will get executed on an isolated state. So you can talk to smart contracts, can talk to other contracts, but it uses a lot of gas. But it's better to use like internal functions. If you can do it internally, it's better to use internal functions. But if there's another library that you can use, you can definitely use that. But it happens on an isolated state where it's not going to modify any other account information, because just in case if the transaction doesn't go through, it needs to revert everything except the gas prices. So in order to make sure that happens, the EVM execute every single transaction on a separate space. MyEtherWallet supports deploying a contract and also interacting with the contract. This is an example contract for a token. It doesn't follow the ERC20 standard. So for example, let's just say you wrote this contract, you compile it, and once you compile it, you'll get a bunch of hex code. And once you get that, you can go to MyEtherWallet and use MyEtherWallet deploy function to deploy that contract. Once you do the deployment, you'll get an address for that contract. So let's just say now you have the address, but you want to interact with the contract. In order to do that, we also have that feature as well. You can simply go to the same tab, the contracts tab, and then include that address where you deployed your contract, and then the ABI. So this is another important part of this whole smart contract area, because once you compile it, it becomes, like I said, it becomes a bunch of hex characters. It's in the compiled form. So in order for you to know which functions to interact, there's no way for us to talk to the blockchain and get it from the blockchain. Well, there are ways now, but there are no easy ways of doing that. Like I cannot talk to the smart contract and ask the smart contract to send all the functions it has. So that's why there's this thing called ABI, which is Application Binary Interface. So when you compile a contract, it generates a JSON file with all the functions inside it. and then all the input parameters and all the outputs that we need to interact with that specific contract. So you can use that, it is automatically generated. So you can use that ABI and then the contract address, and then you can interact with the contract. You can use any of these public functions. Like basic token is the constructor which will get called in the first run, but after that, so you can call the get balance of someone if you just want to call and see like how much this person has. You can select the get balance of and then put the address in and get the balance of the address. The mean tokens as well. Yeah.
So is the compiled code also sitting in one of the data fields?
Really good question. So when you actually deploy a contract, the way there's no to address, right? Who are you sending it to? The contract bytecode, the hex code will be the data, but who are you sending it to? There's nobody to send to. So that's why the to field will be nothing. Null in that case. So that means the EVM knows, okay, this is a contract creation. So it'll create the contract using the data, the bytecode, the compiled version of the contract in the data. Again, you have to have a higher gas limit because you're actually creating a new contract and gas price as well. But there's no to field because you're not sending it to anyone. Another thing we support, another feature we have on MyEtherWallet is called Enos. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with it, but it's pretty much giving you, in simple terms, it's giving you the ability to, let's say you have an address, but it's 42 or like 40 characters, 40 hex characters long. No one can really remember that. So it's pretty much giving you the ability to have a readable name linked to your address. So in ENS, you can start an auction. Let's say someone wants to, if I want to buy kvhnewt.eth, I can start an auction, and when I start an auction, it's a blind auction. So when I start an auction, it'll let everyone know, okay, someone started an auction, and then if someone wants to bid on it, they can also bid the highest amount they're willing to pay for that name, and they have 3 days to do that. And once the 3 days pass, I can go and reveal my bid. Let's say I bid 1 ETH and someone else bid 2 ETH, and then there was another person who bid 5 ETH. And then obviously I lost my bid because there were 3 people bid who had higher bids than me. So, but the highest bidder will only have to pay the second highest bidder's price. So he'll only pay the 2 ETH. And then that person will own the kvhnewt.eth name, and then that person can link it to a specific address. The good thing about this is that now you can, let's say I own it, I own kvhnewt.eth. For example, like MyEtherWallet owns utopia.eth. So whenever you type in utopia.eth on the to address field, it'll automatically resolve to our donation address. So no one has to really remember, even I don't have to remember my donation address. I can simply go and be like, hey, send it, if you want to donate, send it to utopia.eth, because it'll automatically resolve to that address. This is a completely decentralized application. It runs on blockchain, and everything happens on blockchain. Like for example, if you have a question about like who gets that ETH, like someone's paying ETH, right? Who gets that? No one actually gets that. It gets locked in a contract for a year. And then after that year, if you decide you don't need the name anymore, you can send another transaction, release the name, and get your ETH back. Only time you'll actually lose majority of your ETH or majority of your bid is if you don't reveal after 3 days. This is happening all the time, unfortunately. People are trying to figure out other ways to fix it, but only time you lose if I'm not mistaken, 99.5% of your bid if you forget to reveal, because you only have 2 days to reveal.
That's what happened to me. I did it twice. So the reveal thing, you actually have to go
And actually do it,
on that time.
and then reveal it. If you don't, you'll lose
Yeah.
99.5.
See, I thought it would happen automatically. That there'd be like a smart contract that figures out the highest bid and just does that.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not there yet, but it's coming. It's coming. So next time you bid, you might not lose it if you forget. And we also have like, okay, so instant gratification, right? Because we want, all of us wants something done right away. So in order to buy an ENS name, you have to, even if it is super random, no one wants that name, you still have to wait 5 days to get your name. That's why Nick Johnson, who did the ENS contract, also did a subdomain contract, where you can simply go and purchase a subdomain, and instantly it will automatically link to your address. So we support that as well. Only difference is that now the main domain owner, so for example, let's say Newtopia is selling subdomains, so I can have kosala.newtopia.eth under my name. Only difference in that is that, let's say MyEtherWallet actually set a price. Oh, every single subdomain must pay 2 ETH if they want to buy a subdomain under my name. So you have to pay, and the price, the amount you pay will go to MyEtherWallet and whoever advertised it. So for example, we are advertising, I think like 20 plus different subdomains, and we get a portion of that. Like whoever pays, if someone pays 0.05, we get a portion of that to our donation account because we were the people who advertised it. That's another way to incentivize like people to sell their subdomains. So that's if you want something super simple, super quick, something to remember. I recommend getting a subdomain. It costs around. There are subdomains for 0 too, like 0 ETH. You don't have to pay anything other than the gas price. But there are cool ones for like 0.05. Yeah.
What are the subdomains? The addresses?
Let me see if I can figure out how to use a Mac. A minute? Yeah? Okay. Let's see. Open up. So, yeah, see, these are all the, like, see, mu.ether base is already taken, mu.gimme the ETH, it's taken, I'm pretty sure it's me, but mu.extravagant.eth.
Do you mind zooming in?
Huh?
Do you mind zooming in?
Oh, yeah. So, how do I do that?
Plus.
Command plus? Yeah, see? Got it. Can you read? Yeah.
Much better.
So, mu.sendmecrypto.eth, mu.appleid. I have no idea what that is. At facebook.eth. So, see, at reddit.eth. Yeah, if you want, you can buy that, and then it'll automatically, whoever paid for that domain, it'll resolve to that specific name. Yeah.
How do you curate this list of subdomains?
It's actually on the Nick Johnson's repository. So only way to actually add a domain, like let's say there are not that many documentation. I don't think there's any documentation on how to add, like let's say you own a domain and you want to add it to the list. It's not just adding it to, it's not easy as adding it to the list because you have to give the ownership of your domain to the smart contract that gives out these subdomains. So once you do that, you can go to the Nick Johnson's GitHub repo and include it in the JSON file. And then once you do that, we'll just pull it from there.
So it's like making like a whitelist request for
pretty much, yeah. Again, because all the ENS stuff happens in hashes, so you don't really know what domain, what name hashes to what. So you manually have to put your actual word in.
Okay.
Yeah. So all that rocket chat, see, it's fun. Now, yeah, I need help.
The window, tell the window.
Huh?
Close this window.
Okay. Yay. Talking about the backend of MyEtherWallet, we need service. Service not like as database service or to save data because we don't track anyone, we don't have anyone's data, but to run these nodes because we have redundancies for people, gas limit, gas estimates for people, all those things. So we have our service are hosted in Amazon, and we have on average 10 nodes running, both get that parity, and it scales up and down based on the traffic we get. And we have a Lambda function, load balancer, and then a Lambda function in front. So you pretty much connect into the Lambda function, and it can scale to any amount, like millions of users it can support any amount at the same time. So that's why so you pretty much interact with the Lambda function, and the Lambda function will decide which load balancer to connect, and then that load balancer will send you the response back. Like pretty much we have a backend. That backend it's very minimal, but we need that backend to support the users to get nonces, estimates, gas price, and all those things, and obviously broadcasting transactions. Yeah, that's a little balance. Okay, and then the cloud formation. We do have a cloud formation script, and if you go to the MyEtherWallet GitHub repo, you can get it from there. Pretty much what it does. Let's say you're gonna start your own a site similar to MyEtherWallet, and you need nodes, right? You need a backend. So pretty much the CloudFormation script, what it does, you can open an Amazon account, copy paste the CloudFormation script, and then set what type of nodes you want, whether it's parity get and like how powerful you need your EC2 or virtual machines to be, and then set number of nodes and click OK. And then it'll create, even if it is like based on the limits by Amazon, even if you need 100 nodes, it can just create 100 nodes and then outputs a load balancer link, which you can essentially do HTTPS link, which you can simply add to MyEtherWallet, and you're good to go. Your own backend to run MyEtherWallet. We do this not only to make it easy for people to come up with their own networks, but we do this because just in case if something happens to MyEtherWallet, we still want MyEtherWallet to continue. So people can come up with these backends and simply like connect it with a clone or copy of MyEtherWallet and then continue MyEtherWallet. And this also introduced like a little bit of decentralizing. It's not completely decentralized, but you still have the ability to run your own MyEtherWallet. No one's stopping you from doing that, and we are MIT licensed, open source, and feel free. So.
Question?
Yeah.
Are the nodes in all the different regions, or you kind of?
Yeah, we do have. Nodes are in different regions as well, but mainly our nodes are in U.S. Oregon. And if you ask me the reason, there's no specific reason for it, but we do have different origin because we do have multiple load balancers running in the backend to make it better. At the same time, we are working on a new UI, and like a pretty much new MyEtherWallet version 5 will come out hopefully in next 3 months, which will have a completely new backend with a caching layer on top of it. So that way we can support. Right now, our cost is going so our cost goes up based on number of visitors we get, and we are getting so pretty much our cost is increasing exponentially because our visitors are exponentially increasing. Because of that, we cannot have this type of backend, but our backend the new backend will have a caching layer on top, which will that instead of our nodes running most of the hard work, the Lambda function can run most of the hard work. So each Lambda function will have its own VM, virtual machine, and its own gas estimate, its own nonce function, so that you don't have to hit the nodes every single time to get the information out. So yeah, that's coming out too.
Another question.
Yeah.
Do you do any analytics or tracking, or is that not a cool thing to do?
Yes and no. Yes, as in no. Yes, as in we have aggregate results, meaning we don't have individual results. I don't know what people like, from this specific country and this specific ISP and this specific computer did, or this specific IP did. We have aggregate results. It's not something we did intentionally because our front end is hosted by CloudFront, and CloudFront will automatically give you analytics on, how many visitors you got, what regions are the most popular regions, and what are the number of terabytes you used last month, which is 12.4 terabytes.
Out.
12.4 terabytes out. So it was a pretty good number. We are talking with Cloudflare on switching to Cloudflare because of the whole. The next thing, which I will talk about, but yeah. So all that, it's insane, but I'm happy. It's a good problem to have. Yeah.
What's sort of the country breakdown of those visitors?
U.S. and Russia. Those two. I remember those two. But yeah, mainly U.S., Russia. I think the next one was a European country. I forgot what it was. But no, she has the list. I'll give you the first 5. Yeah.
When you say you talk about Lambda and you have nodes maintaining 10 nodes,
Uh-huh.
how you run on Lambda functions and what kind of functions you run?
No, you always hit the Lambda function. And the Lambda function will decide which node, and the Lambda function will decide which load balancer to use. And the load balancer based on the traffic you get, it's an Amazon load balancer. So based on the traffic each node is getting, it'll automatically switch which node to respond to.
But Ethereum node or parity node, it will be somewhere else. You are not maintaining that.
No, it'll be get to parity nodes. Yeah, we have that. Those are the 10 nodes I talked about. And then in front of that, we have a load balancer, and then in front of the load balancer, there's the Lambda function.
But when I read about Infura or something you were using backend in the website to allocate that Infura or something.
Oh, Infura? Yeah, we do have an Infura node by, it's actually community sponsored. They sponsored an Infura node. So you can switch, let's just say MyEtherWallet nodes went offline for some reason. You can go to myetherwallet.com and simply select Infura and you're back online. Say over here, Infura, and then Givet has their own node. Etherscan provided their node. So we have all these backup plans because when Golem happened, we went down. Thank you. When Golem happened, we went down, and a lot of people blamed us, and it's understandable. And after that, we reached out to the community, and a lot of people started contributing their nodes to us. Now we have Infura, Etherscan, and all these other ones.
Can you talk a little bit about resources, how much you really require to maintain one node? Like
all of our nodes are running on NVMe drives, which is I think like the Amazon M5. So we're talking about cost-wise, we're talking about more than $1,000 a month per node. So that's just the node cost, and then we have the CDN costs on top of that.
So you maintain full node, or it's a lightweight node?
No, those are all not archive nodes, but like those are all fast nodes.
Right.
So all those are like, they have, I don't know, like last, whatever the number of blocks. So yeah, we not archive. We don't have the full archive, which is I think more than 200 gigabytes now. But we have past 100,000 blocks or something around that. Or however the fast works on Get and Parity now.
How reliable they are? I mean, how do you manage that? It's like I've seen that it's Get and Parity, whatever you use, they always not something you can't. You have to manually restart it. Yeah, so we do have a script. I'm glad you know about it. So we have a script that constantly check. Whether the node is live. If it's not, it kills it and restarts it. So that's the only solution. I talked to so many people, and did you try restarting it? I'm like, okay.
So I know you're almost out of time, so I think maybe we'll take like one more question.
Okay.
We can do
how do you maintain that process, and do you maintain the data or you just leave it and again you sync with another node to get the data whatever it's called?
Oh, if it fails?
I mean, it's like it just went down.
Oh yeah, because our load back.
You just attach to that one whenever it come back, or else you just sync with another node to get whatever it wants.
So, yeah, good question. But the way we do it is actually the load balancer is taking care of that. When the node goes down, it automatically switches the traffic to the other nodes. But it might fail, like one or two requests might fail based on.
Yeah, so that will take care. But the question is that so you maintain the data, the blocks. So when it goes down, when it comes back, do you use persistent data so that it doesn't have to go back and sync it?
Oh yeah. So I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question properly. But yeah, when I say restart the node, I just restart the client. So usually it resolves the problem. So if it's get, I restart the get client. If it's parity, I restart the parity client. So that's pretty much it. I'm talking with all the get developers and parity developers, and it's very inconsistent. There's no way to figure out exactly why it's happening and what's the reason and what point it happens. You just restart and it works back. Like nothing ever happened.
Thanks.
So, I think, so I'm on the last slide. Last Tuesday, we had an attack. We had a DNS issue, not an issue. We were attacked by I don't know who, but our website, whoever went to MyEtherWallet.com, if you were affected, if you were using Google DNS, you were redirected to a malicious phishing site. This happened for 2 hours between 11 UTC and 1 UTC. But the good thing was why not that many people were affected by it is because that was a SSL error, meaning like this SSL certificate doesn't match with the domain. Or the SSL certificate was self-signed. I have a bunch of tickets by like multiple different SSL errors, but like pretty much everyone had an SSL error. The people who were affected by it actually clicked continue. Oh, this is like, big warning, red, don't continue, but like they continued. I'm sorry, but it happened. And so pretty much what happened on that day was I got a call, and there were a whole bunch of Reddit posts online saying we are getting SSL errors and people are getting hijacked, and there was a DNS hijack going on MyEtherWallet. And I checked all my accounts and went on and made sure nothing is wrong in those. Like all my DNS servers were okay, all the MyEtherWallet servers were okay, like the CDN was okay. I couldn't figure out like what's happening, and then we started monitoring tweets, and the DNS, the switches security groups started tweeting about this something odd about Amazon IPs, like someone's redirecting a set of Amazon IPs to a different path. So instead of going to where it's supposed to go, it's actually going, the whole IP route is changed. It's not web URLs getting changed. So pretty much, let's say you have, like there's a delivery person delivering a package to 123 Main Street, Los Angeles, California, USA. So that person will go to USA, and then from USA they'll say how to go to California, and then California, or how to say LA, and then Main Street, and then that person will deliver the package to 123 Main Street. But what happened on that day was, so this delivery person went to USA, and then California, and then the person in California told him to go to Russia, because that's where the Main Street is. And then that person ended up in a malicious site. And this is not something simple as changing a URL. This is because our core of internet was built 10 years ago. So that the current structure. And unfortunately, it's based on an honor system. So everyone honors each other, meaning like every single point trusts the other points. So if someone becomes malicious at any one of these points, they can direct users, they can redirect routes to different IP addresses, and it becomes vulnerable. And that attack happened on that day. It went viral because not because it happened to MyEtherWallet, it's the problem in the core of internet infrastructure. So it was on NBC, it was on forgot. It was pretty much on TechCrunch. It was on NBC. It was on what's the hell one? Oh my gosh, I forgot. That magazine. Anyway, huh? It was there. It was everywhere. It went viral. And then obviously like name of MyEtherWallet was also there. And then a lot of security researchers started trying to figure out like what exactly happened and how to prevent it, and a lot of people actually reached out to me. I'm super thankful for all of them, including Cloudflare. Cloudflare actually made a whole blog post on what exactly happened, not just Google DNS. The reason why it became like such a massive attack is because Google DNS started caching these routes. It cached it, and since a lot of other DNS servers actually trust Google DNS, they started caching these routes as well. So and Cloudflare, initially I was saying, hey, like everyone you should use Cloudflare, but Cloudflare was affected as well. So pretty much everyone was affected because it's not simple DNS hijacking, because it's BGP hijacking where you route people to different paths. And including Cloudflare reached out to me, and then I'm in talk with them in order to mitigate these issues from happening in the future. We are moving in the upcoming week all of our DNS services to Cloudflare, but unfortunately none of the security researchers were able to give me a solid answer on whether it's something that could have been prevented, because since the core structure of internet is so old, back then nobody actually thought about this possibility. This happens in small scales. Like it's easy to do it in smaller scale, meaning like you can do this to a city, you can do this to a town, or you can do this to even like a small state, because you only have to hack a specific like a good enough DNS or BGP router. But since it went viral, since it went worldwide, it was because this attack was massive, and you need a lot of money to do this kind of attack, and a lot of server power to do this kind of attack. And the last time I heard, it was they were able to hack one of the routers in Ohio, and then that Ohio router started broadcasting, and that was cached by a big internet service provider in Ohio as well. And then from that point, it just escalated, and everyone started caching each other, and then sent people to the wrong address.
When was this?
Last Tuesday. So not yesterday, the week before.
How many people were affected approximately?
It was, last time I checked, it was 180 something people. But the funds lost so far is around 216 each, which is around $150,000. And in a way, I'm glad. It's because compared to every other massive attacks in this, like blockchain world, people lose money in millions of dollars. This is like $150,000. But I'm sorry, I'm sad that this happened. But I'm glad a lot of people were really clever and then didn't proceed with the security warning, because based on the traffic we get, if this happened for 2 hours, this attack would have been like a lot of people would have lost millions and millions of dollars. But a lot of people were cautious and smart and clever enough to not proceed. That's why it ended up where it is right now. But there are ways to mitigate something like this, like things like HTTP SSL certificate pinning, where you say this certificate is pinned to this domain name. So if you have a different certificate, it's not going to work. But these needs to be implemented by browsers, including CAA record, HSTS, and DNSSEC. A lot of people talk about DNSSEC, but it's something that came out, I think, 3-4 years ago. But unfortunately, it's not being adopted by everyone. Not all the DNS servers supports that. Even Google DNS server supports it, but even Google.com is not DNSSEC signed. So, but we will. Cloudflare, that's our next target. We are going to move everything. We are in talk with Cloudflare to make it smooth transition, because we don't want the website to go down during this transition. And we are talking with all the security teams, and they're on top of it to make sure the exact same attack won't happen. But there are other, unfortunately, just you have to be cautious. You have to see our MyEtherWallet incorporation SSL certificate on green bar, because if you see that, that means you are using the actual SSL certificate and you are on the right side, right side. Yeah.
I was gonna ask, so like, technically, did they actually get into your AWS, like the physical servers?
No, none of our accounts, not even a password change, nothing. Like no one even tried to reset. They actually got a bunch of like you know how Amazon has their own set of IP addresses. So each and every person, like if you become a company or like a service provider, you get assigned a certain number of IP addresses. So Amazon has so many, and then some of those, like some IPs from that list that are corresponding to their DNS servers, actually got redirected to a different country completely. We're talking about IP address redirection, not like the name redirection. Name redirections are easy. I mean, like, did something happen always? Like, for example, the Delta hack was someone hacked the DNS server and then changed the CDN or the IP for where the content is hosted. That happens all the time, but this doesn't happen. This has happened in the past to a bank and like a couple of other small scale ones, but this was the biggest attack so far in the whole world. And it happened to MyEtherWallet. It could have happened to anyone, but it happened to MyEtherWallet. And I know, it's sad, but...
How many times it happens in AWS?
Huh?
How many times it happens in AWS?
Never.
First time?
This is the first time in the whole world that the attack was this massive.
How much do you think this
That's another really good question. I think it's more than what they gained.
Okay.
So that's why I still believe, like this is my personal opinion, I still believe this attack wasn't directed at MyEtherWallet. I believe it was directed at something else, like they collected information during this 2 hours time period, and MyEtherWallet was a side effect. I don't know what it is, but if something comes up within the next week or 2 or month about a data breach, you'll know it's because of this. Because it's too big of an attack for a site like MyEtherWallet. And especially they knew about the SSL error, right? Like they could have gone around it. So.
Okay, so I think in the interest of time, we have to catch a flight, so we're going to wrap it up there. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you so much, guys. Huh? Oh, yeah.